Ultra and the OnePlus 8 Pro. Wow, these names are getting crazy. So after fully calibrating the brightness of each display and setting the Wi-Fi on, Bluetooth on, and speakers off, it's time to unplug and go. Now, I gotta say that the battery capacities we're seeing on this table right now are kind of impressive. They're the most impressive we've ever had in a battery test. But isn't it also kind of weird how in sync these Android phones are in terms of capacity? It's almost like they had a little chat before releasing their phones to make sure they were all completely aligned. The one phone that sticks out from that is the new iPhone. The iPhone 12 Pro Max has not just the smallest capacity of the bunch, but also less capacity than last year. It is only an estimate, but that estimate does suggest that you're getting 3,687 mAh of capacity on this new phone, which yes, is about 7% less raw battery than the iPhone 11 Pro Max. And if you take a look at the battery indicators right now, it is already being slightly outcompeted. There's two ways you could look at it. You could either think, well, Apple's giving us less battery than last year, that sucks. Or you could look at it as, well, the iPhone 11 Pro Max was incredible for battery, and this is only 7% less, so it's fine. I'd be curious to know which side of that fence you sit on. Now, you know the hardest part of making this entire comparison? It was deciding what display settings to put the phones on. Because every one of the Android phones you see here has multiple options for both resolution and refresh rate. And there's nothing I can set it to that's going to make every single person happy. Some people want this test to be, well, put all the phones on maximum resolution. Some people want it to be, keep everything on its default settings. But the conclusion I came to was a middle ground. Every phone here is on its default resolution, but it's on its maximum refresh rate. Because for a lot of these Android phones with high refresh rate displays, that refresh rate is one of their core selling points. So I didn't feel like it would be representative to not use it. So that means that in this test, the iPhones are running at the highest resolutions, but the lowest refresh rates. And they're losing. And if this continues, it's a big result, because the iPhone 11 Pro Max really is a monster. I've been using it as my main phone for like almost 8 months now, and it's lasted me every day without fail. So it says something about this new wave of super high-end Android phones. And here's why I think they're performing so well. You see, you know when the first phones came out with super high refresh rate displays, they kind of bombed in terms of battery life. Because of course, all of a sudden having to double the rate at which your screen refreshes is a massive drain on resources. But then companies realize something. They realize that, wait a second, we only need to turn on high refresh rate in applications where it's obvious. So these Android phones, they probably will refresh 90 or 120 times per second when you're on your home screen and scrolling through apps, but most of the time within applications, they won't. Like right now, playing this fairly simple tower defense game, the Galaxy Note's display is actually refreshing only 60 times per second. And if you would pull up YouTube Mobile and start watching a video that was filmed at 30 FPS, this will only refresh 30 times per second, which is actually going to be saving it battery. With that said, every phone in this test right now is smashing it. I always say, if a phone can get to 5 hours, that's good battery life. And it does look, at least so far, that each of these phones is going to leapfrog that. It's great to see that this space has become so competitive that smartphone companies really have to give the consumers what it is that they've been asking for. Now, as well as being one of the longest videos I've ever filmed, this has also been one of the tightest. If you look at these Android phones, they're literally within 1-2 percentage points of each other. After 3 hours into this grueling battery test, that is some insane level of coordination. Oh, also, something else to note about the Note. Samsung sells 2 versions of this phone. One with an in-house Exynos chip. That's the one we get here in the UK, that's the one you get in India. One with a Qualcomm chip. That's the one you get in the US. And I've tested both of these versions side by side. There is a big difference in terms of battery. The Qualcomm one is just more efficient. So because in this comparison I wanted it to be the best of the best, the clash of the titans, I'm using the Snapdragon version in this video. So you just got to factor that in if you're using this as a buying decision. If you're in India or if you're in the UK, expect about 10% less battery life than you see here. Okay, so it's been about 4 hours now. We're jumping into some Bright Memory, which is one of the prettiest games I think you can get on a smartphone. But that brings me on to something that I've actually struggled a bit with this test. It's finding representative applications that I can test on all these phones. Because for this test, we've got to cater for not just apps available on iOS, but also Android and Huawei. And Huawei not having Google Apps and not having a lot of the apps that rely on Google Apps has made that a bit trickier. And I should probably mention at this stage that the current workarounds Huawei has are not ideal. The Huawei Mate 40 Pro from a hardware perspective is a phone that I really want to recommend, but the software is just in limbo right now. So anyways, you might have noticed we're past the 5-hour mark. We're in the clear. All of these phones have good baseline battery life, and now it's just a competition to see who's got the absolute best. And it's still very close between these Androids. Samsung and Huawei have crept up a little bit, but not enough that it's significant. But the gap between the iPhones has widened. There's now almost 10 percentage points in it. So we're running some Among Us for about an hour. And even though this is a game, I've actually found it to be quite light on the battery, just because it's so basic graphically, and also because there's a lot of black in there. And you probably know that black, when you've got an OLED display, means that your pixels can actually switch off. And that saves battery. Okay, so we've just passed the 6-hour mark. It's time to up the intensity even more. The iPhones are clinging in there, and do you know what? So this is something I've actually noticed about iPhone battery. I've tested enough of these phones that I'm convinced that Apple's battery indicator doesn't decrease at a uniform rate. It lies to you. I'm convinced that at the start, it tells you it's on 100% for longer than it actually is, even when the battery has actually fallen a little bit. And they probably do that just to give you an initial sense of confidence, to avoid that feeling of, hey, I just charged my phone, how is it going down already? And then after 100, Apple battery falls quite quickly, but then I think it slows down again towards the end, which would again make sense because it gives you time to scramble around and get your charger. And that's about right now on these iPhones. So we've opened up 3D Bench, and this actually goes on for a surprisingly long time before eventually the iPhone 12 Pro Max calls it a day. I carried on benchmarking for a little longer and then opened up YouTube Mobile. Notice YouTube Mobile being the YouTube browser because the Huawei phone doesn't support the YouTube application. And you'll notice something funny about the Galaxy Note's display. I mean, for starters, the brightness. Even though I'd fixed the Galaxy Note's display at a specific point, it seems to fluctuate a little bit off its own accord. And secondly, there's like a weird banding going on. And that's my camera reacting to the fact that the Galaxy Note has actually switched its refresh rate. Right now, it's only running at 30 Hz, because the video being played is only at 30 Hz. So this is super efficient on Samsung's part. Okay, second iPhone's gone. And from this point I tried to play 4 games of chess at the same time, 3D chess on these phones. This actually goes on for a while and I open up a couple more applications, but you've probably seen enough. I'm going to fast forward it till the end and we'll get to the results. Okay, so in 6th place, the iPhone 12 Pro Max. The result speaks for itself. This has the least battery of all the Ultra phones. But at the same time, just bear in mind that 7 hours is still what I'd call exceptional. So the phone does deserve to be in this tier. In 5th place, iPhone 11 Pro Max, which lasted a full half an hour longer. So I would say that this is the kind of difference that you'll notice, but also the kind of difference that won't be a deal breaker. So say you were trying to pick between the 11 Pro Max and the 12 Pro Max, the 12 Pro Max is still a better phone overall. Okay, then in 4th place is the Huawei Mate 40 Pro. And I don't even have a label for what to call a phone that lasts over 8 hours, just because of how rare it's been so far. So it's ludicrous that now, at the end of 2020, that's 4th place. That said, of course, the battle was very close between these Androids, so the OnePlus 8 Pro in 3rd place did only last 6 minutes longer, which is close enough to be put down to margin of error. As in, if you tested them again with completely different applications, it's close enough that Huawei could have also beaten OnePlus. And that's even more applicable between 3rd and 2nd place, with the Xiaomi Mi 10 Ultra. I really do love this phone, it's the best phone that Xiaomi makes. I'm just curious why they put so much effort into making it special, but then only released it in China. And that leaves us with the Galaxy Note, with an additional 10 minutes on top of that. And although you can't exactly compare results between tests, because each one runs slightly different apps, that makes this the highest ever recorded score on a battery test. So that's good. If you enjoyed this video, then do consider subscribing.